Welcome back, everybody. Pro Wrestling Experience here on ChicagolandSportsRadio.com. Hope you guys are enjoying the show so far. You can follow me on Twitter at WCJoshLopez. Follow Angelo on Twitter at J20Lopez. Yeah, look at that Rise Above Cancer shirt, WWE shirt right there, walking down State Street here in Chicago. This is fastest rising pro wrestling talk show in the world. We're 10 episodes away from PWE 150 coming up in January, and I've been waiting a long time to have this man on the show. I've been a big fan of his work on Bleacher Report over the years, and seeing him on the Nick and Brian show, appearing on Justin LaBar's radio shows, and now being a great writer on Forbes. Give a follow to Alfred Konuwa at This Is Nasty, and he joins us here on the PW show. Alfred, Josh Lopez here, downtown Chicago. What's going on, bud?
How's it going? Thanks for having me on. 150 episodes. That's a huge accomplishment, man.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. I started the show when I was 19, and it was right before WrestleMania 29.
Wow, yeah, and I was actually there in attendance. It was a lot of fun out there in New York. And yeah, I got to get some of that. If you need me to make an appearance, I'd love to be part of the historic event.
Absolutely, brother, man. I'd love to have you back on the show. But let's get this bad boy started. A lot to get into. I wanted to start off with a topic I started off the show with. There's an article that came out from Ad Ages about executives from NBC Universal giving their comments on how WWE produces their product today and try to make it more family friendly and move away the negative connotation that's come with professional wrestling over the past 15 years on television. And of course, they had the Chris Benoit scandal. Let me ask you this, Alfred. What is professional wrestling in 2015?
Professional wrestling in 2015 is pretty much on the same, maybe on the wavelength, but it is aspiring to be like Disney. I remember, I believe it was an E60 special, they asked Vince McMahon, like, what more can you do with this company? Like, you guys have taken it so far. You're this billion-dollar enterprise. What's next? And Vince McMahon simply responded by saying Disney. And that's where WWE wants to go. It wants to be this company that's world-renowned, which it already is, but it wants to be more mainstream, and it wants to be more attractive to advertisers and families so that it can continue to make money for itself and build those revenue streams. And, you know, the company that a lot of the hardcore wrestling fans fell in love with during the Attitude Era, that WWE is long gone and it's never coming back. I mean, they want to move forward with characters who can make public appearances, who can go to, you know, anti-bullying rallies, and who can really send a message and be role models.
I totally agree with you. And being a fan that grew up during the Attitude Era, just from a wrestling and TV product-wise, maybe subjectively the storylines are better, but comparing the in-ring wrestling from then to now, I'll take today's era by leaps and bounds. The guys, they're busting their ass each and every week, and even the girls from this standpoint. I've been interacting with a lot of people that are casual viewers that used to watch a lot back in the day, and they're saying the women are one of the most enjoyable parts of the show now. Do you see where I'm coming from there? I honestly feel today's wrestling business is taken for granted because people are so worried about what's happening in booking and blah, 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 blah. I mean, we watch wrestling for wrestling matches, right? Not who's getting booked or buried.
Right, and booking is always important, and it's always something that you want to be at a top-notch level with WWE. I think they've kind of gotten in their own way by adding so many writers and this creative process instead of really letting these wrestlers find their own voice.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree that the in-ring is so much improved and it's so evolved, especially what we see in WWE, to the point where we're now numb to it because we're in this era of overexposure to information. Everybody's so jaded. You see these matches on Raw, like that Fatal 4-Way match we saw a couple weeks ago. I mean, that would have passed off as a pay-per-view not only today, but years ago. That could have made it to WrestleMania, you know? And but we see that routinely on Raw, so there's just so much content out there that people are a little numb to it, and they get lost in the fact that the wrestling is so good.
Yeah, and then it also goes back to people saying, oh, WWE doesn't look at the big picture. Like you just mentioned, there's so much content that goes out throughout the week, it may go over people's head. Like for me, I work for WrestleZone.com, and yes, it's a dirt sheet website, but for me, I cover the shows and I just put what's fact on the show, and it helps me study the product more. I don't need to rely on other wrestling websites to dictate my wrestling opinion. I could watch what goes on through there and form my opinion from there. And it's helped me study the product better. I mean, I see a lot of little things that happen on SmackDown that go over people's head. There is long-term feuds. Some don't work out, like Rusev and Lana and that whole fiasco with Dolph Ziggler and Lana. In other cases, it works with Roman Reigns and Bray Wyatt. It's a double-edged sword, but I think in today's wrestling world, I think I'm really trying to find a balance of what today's wrestling is. That's the issue I'm having with, because in the 80s you had a general consensus of what it was. It was over the top wrestling. You had nice funny characters. 90s you had the gritty edge, but I can't really define what today's wrestling is. Like you mentioned Disney, I'm just talking more on the TV side.
What wrestling is in the TV, and that's a great question because we're in a transitional period. I don't think WWE knows what they are right now, They're preparing for life after John Cena, who was their card carrier, who was their poster boy for the past decade. Yeah. So now they're going to have to move forward into a new generation, and we're just going to see an organic rise to power. Maybe it's Roman Reigns, maybe it's Dean Ambrose. It'll be somebody who really takes the bull by the horns and becomes a top star, and WWE will be able to build their identity around that. But I can tell you that when it comes to television content, you're still going to get very good wrestling. Yeah. Eventually, hopefully, once the characters are more fleshed out, you're going to get better storytelling, and WWE will be a product that's not necessarily like gritty. You were talking about gritty in the different areas, over the top, but I think it's kind of an infusion. Now we're in this reality era, and what scares me, what I'm afraid of, is that WWE is going to go too much into the reality era. They're going to skew toward the fact that, these people know that it's fake, so let's just, pull the curtain back a little more. Like the whole Rusev and Lana thing you alluded to, here's what I don't like, and this is a sign of the times, and this is another nod to what era we're in, is they went on TMZ and said, we're married in real life. So WWE used that in their storyline and said, okay, fine, we're going to have to ruin the storyline. There's no need to do that, People know that WWE is a show and that real life is real life, so you need to keep those things separate in order to build these characters. But the more WWE does that, I think the more it's going to hurt its own product.
We're talking to Alfred Konuwa from Forbes and Bleacher Report here on the PW Show here on ChicagolandSportsRadio.com. We're live every Wednesdays from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern, which is 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. here in the Chicagoland area. Let's get to know you a little bit, Alfred, before we get back to some more current wrestling talk. Tell us a little bit about your background. You're one of the big wrestling media guys I know out there. I can certainly say you're one of the primary reasons why I wanted to get into this field. And tell us a little bit about your background and how you got with Forbes and Bleacher Report today.
I really appreciate that, Josh. Yeah, what happened is that I just started my own blog. I felt like writing. I started my own blog called BigNasty.com, and started talking. I talk general sports, but you kind of want to find your niche when it comes to blogging, so I skewed it more toward wrestling because that's what I love doing. And then I eventually reached out to Bleacher Report because I knew that at the time just about anybody could write for Bleacher Report, and I knew that would be a good way to create more buzz around my blog, maybe get a link toward it. But then Bleacher Report, as they evolved, they did more of a vetting process. And they would only retain people who would pass their course when it came to writing and their academy and stuff like that. So I remain with Bleacher Report to this day, to where they've grown so much and they have all kinds of national writers from around the world, and I'm very honored to stay with them. And so through my work with Bleacher Report, I got to meet a lot of different editors and producers and stuff like that who I'm close with. And one of the great producers at Bleacher Report was hired by Forbes magazine because she did such a great job building that website. And she reached out to me and said, hey, you want to come with me? You want to come write for Forbes? And I could turn that down because I know how great of a brand Forbes is. And I knew, I'm an accounting major. I have a background in accounting. So professional wrestling and accounting are, and, finance and business, it's like a match made in heaven. There's no way I could have said no to that. So now I'm working actually for both Forbes and Bleacher Report. I do video for Bleacher Report. You're going to get an announcement about the next step in Forbes pretty soon here. And I love it, man.
It's awesome, man. Especially for you being a big-time wrestling fan. I'm sure it's pretty humbling to see your quotes and your work broadcasted on Raws and network specials, right?
Yeah, isn't that crazy? Like they don't tell you beforehand or anything like that. I'm just watching Raw and like I'm on my cell phone and looking up at the TV and I saw that and I was like, wait, is that my name? And you just kind of sit up like, wait a minute, that's something I wrote.
Let me get into this. So I've been watching wrestling since 98, a little towards 99. So I just turned 21 a couple months ago, and I graduated from my broadcasting school here in Chicago last year. Trying to get my name out there a little bit more. This show's been rising up really fastly, more than I ever thought. I mean, the fact that we're getting to 150 episodes is nuts. And now I'm part of WrestleZone these days. If you had any advice for someone like me or anybody out there that's aspiring to do and cover professional wrestling for a living, what would it be?
I would say work your butt off. I mean, if you love it, you're just write about it all the time. We're in a world where it's a self-starter's dream come true. Beforehand, you had to make phone calls. You had to get in a good graces with the right people. It's not what you knew, it's who you knew. You could start your own blog. You could start your own enterprise. Just find a platform where you could write about professional wrestling as much as possible. And as long as you're getting better and you're improving and you're making contact through email with different websites and the editors there, good things will happen. You just have to keep working at it.
We got Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins at Survivor Series for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. I think this is a feud that's been long overdue. I thought the Brock and Rollins stuff was entertaining for what it was, but I thought it made sense for right now, especially during this time of the year, to actually have this feud because you don't have to worry about Rollins having to prove himself against guys who are either part-timers or guys who are over the hill that don't deserve to be in title feuds anymore. And then thirdly, what I like about this feud for me, Alfred, is that it's a current guy. I'm a Roman Reigns fan. I'm not afraid to admit it. I'm not ashamed of it. I like the guy. The guy has been putting on one of the best pay-per-view matches, every single pay-per-view throughout the year since WrestleMania, and the guy don't get respect. The promos are what they are, but this guy has earned my respect, especially during the work he's doing in the ring this year. What's your thoughts on this feud, Alfred, and do you think now's the time to pull the trigger on Reigns or no?
I like the feud. I don't think you should be ashamed of being a Roman Reigns fan. I mean, I know a lot of the internet wrestling community, they tend to go really hardcore and skew towards the underground guys, but the guys who are going to make a difference for WWE are the people who, like my girlfriend sitting up on my couch, is going to pay attention to Roman Reigns. So, the guys who cater to the casual fans are the ones who WWE wants to put its stock in because you already have these hardcore fans. They're going to watch no matter what. And I really do like this feud between Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins. It feels like the next iteration of this great feud that we're going to see a lot of. Kind of like the John Cena, Randy Orton, John Cena Edge, Rock Austin type. I think we're going to see a lot of this, and I'm very excited to see Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins fighting one-on-one. I don't think Roman Reigns should get the title, his first shot at Seth Rollins, just because you kind of want more of a chase from the babyface. I think at Survivor Series, maybe we get a screwy finish or something happens, and then in December, we go to the end of the year with Roman Reigns as champion. So that's almost a full year with Seth Rollins as world champion. Now we begin Roman Reigns. That's also going to help because you don't have to worry about putting Roman Reigns in the Royal Rumble, where you potentially could have Nerd Rage Volume 3, where Roman Reigns potentially wins the Royal Rumble and everybody goes crazy. So I think if they back into the WrestleMania main event and Roman Reigns is already the champion, they're going to avoid any type of riots or backlash on Twitter.
I totally agree with you from that standpoint. I wanted to bring this up to you before I get back to my thoughts on Reigns and Rollins. I brought this up on Twitter during Monday night on the WrestleZone.com Twitter account. Maybe it's me, but a lot of Seth Rollins' tirade right now reminds me a lot of Chris Jericho when he first became the Undisputed Champion. I understand that Triple H is allies with Rollins, so there's a difference, but to me, Alfred, I think there's a lot of comparisons because, yes, they're a good heel. Jericho lost a couple times when he was a heel at matches while he was a champion, but at the same time, he was pampered by Stephanie. So I see a lot of comparison from Seth Rollins' title reign to Jericho's title reign when he was the Undisputed Champion.
It's eerily similar. It's almost the same exact thing. They're both Undisputed Champions, and you don't feel like they're world champions. You know, Triple H comes off like more world champion. They are the top stable, and they have this dynamic with Seth Rollins, who's supposed to be your top guy, your top champion, where it's like they're his parents, and they're constantly, he has to get approval from them, and they have to keep testing him, and it's very patronizing, and I think it hurts the Seth Rollins character. Rollins, the only thing saving this title reign is that when it comes to having a big match on pay-per-view, he always delivers. It's always a very, very good match. Now, his match with Kane is whatever, but he's had some incredible performances while world champion, but he's just got to get from under the shadow of the authority. They've got to stop making him lose on television week after week. He's not being booked like a world champion. I don't believe Seth Rollins is a world champion in this current run, and that's a shame because he's a very big talent.
I think that's most of the cases for a lot of guys that are younger that get a title reign right off the bat. Like, it kind of goes back to like when CM Punk was World Heavyweight Champion. It really didn't work out that much. He was losing too when he was the World Heavyweight Champion when he cashed in after WrestleMania 24. Let's go back to this. So going back to what you said about Reigns, I totally agree. You do not want to get into a third straight year where your fans basically dictate that your road to WrestleMania sucks. And I think that's the best case scenario for everybody, to have Reigns and Rollins for the title. You don't have to worry about Reigns being in the Rumble match. Here's the thing. I mean, obviously the big topic issue here is how can anybody on this main roster, excluding part-timers, could fill 100,000 people at AT&T Stadium. I think WrestleMania is a draw. I mean, look at this year. I mean, WrestleMania 31 was one of the highest-grossing WrestleManias of all time, and people hated the build towards it. I can see maybe the same thing happening here, but I think if you put Reigns and Rollins in this situation, it's like what you say a lot. It's what's best for business.
Right. No, absolutely, and it's going to be a task to legitimately fill up 100,000 seat stadium. WWE will have all hands on deck. I mean, I expect The Rock to be there, Austin to be there, not necessarily wrestling, but they're at least going to make appearances. I still think they're going to make a push for Ronda Rousey, even though her schedule looks like it doesn't allow her to compete. I don't believe that, we're done with the Rousey discussion. I just think that we're going to have a lot of legends who are going to be at WrestleMania with the goal of filling up 100,000 seat stadium. And if the numbers don't tie out, if they don't get 100,000 people, they'll just make it up. They'll make it up in the press release, because this is going to be WWE's legacy for WrestleMania 32. Is the most attended WrestleMania of all time, the most since WrestleMania 3 in Detroit.
I don't think this will be Vince's swan song, but if he can pull this off, I think that's really the peak of what his impact and legacy will be in the wrestling business. So you're right, this WrestleMania is very important for not only the future of the company, but the long-term legacy of the company as well. I think also just for pro wrestling in general, we mentioned about it earlier in the interview about wrestling not being as big, or the hot button issue, money, Tuesday morning water cooler conversations anymore. But I agree that I think WrestleMania this year is very, very important. It is every year, so I hope it works out for them. A couple more things before I let you go. Hall of Fame this year, it's in Dallas. I heard a lot of people say Freebirds. I have this interesting scenario here, and I want to tie in the Bray Brothers Destruction feud into this. I don't know if it's me, Alfred, but I think that with what they're doing right now with this Wyatt family and Brothers Destruction feud, I think this is going to lead to Kane and Undertaker one last time at WrestleMania, and Undertaker puts Kane away.
I really hope not. Because we're talking about like the Undertaker's last WrestleMania match in Texas, highest attendance ever. It's going to be a big deal. Undertaker could go on last. It could be the main event of WrestleMania for all we know. So for Kane to be the opponent for the third, I mean, it just wouldn't. It's not the match you want the Undertaker to be in, because he's got something left in the tank. And I like Kane as a performer, but Undertaker versus Kane isn't going to give you that classic WrestleMania match. Undertaker versus John Cena has been thrown around, which I would have no problem with. Yeah. Undertaker versus Sting. I mean, I've never been a fan of the concept of Undertaker versus Sting, but that's at least going to be a big draw. It's at least going to be a dream match that people would want to see, and they're both pros, and hopefully they can make it work.
How about Hall of Fame this year? Who goes in?
I like the Freebirds. I do believe the Freebirds could go in. It's a Texas area Hall of Fame, so the Texas is a very rich pro wrestling territory, But they've had events in Texas, so the Funks have already gone in and whatnot. But I do think the Freebirds could be the headliners. Maybe this is the year for The Rock. Maybe that's the excuse to get The Rock to come to Texas. He'll be in the Hall of Fame, and he'll run an angle the next night on WrestleMania. I could see The Rock going in. It's just I wouldn't see the Texas tie-in with The Rock, but you don't necessarily have to be territorial to go into the Hall of Fame at a given WrestleMania. So, I could see The Rock, but I could definitely see I'd be shocked if the Freebirds did not go into the Hall of Fame.
One last thing. Do you think this is the last WrestleMania where the Authority are major authority figures on the main product? Because for me, I think this is the end of the Authority run of this particular storyline.
No, I think the Authority is going to be here to stay, man. I think, maybe not regular every week characters. They're going to take their design breaks and whatnot. But, for the most part, we're going to see Triple H and Stephanie McMahon as essential figures who make the matches, who decide who they want to be champion. Because WWE, the most successful time was that dynamic between Stone Cold Steve Austin and Vince McMahon. And you can't necessarily recreate that, and I don't like that WWE's trying to recreate that. But they're going to keep trying because, there's no off-season. It's just nonstop. So what's old is always new again in WWE, and they're going to shoot for that dynamic with Triple H and Stephanie and whatever babyface they want to antagonize.
Make sure you follow Alfred at Twitter at This Is Nasty, Big Nasty. Alfred, man, this is a blast, man. I'm glad you took some time out of your schedule. I know you're a busy guy. I had a great time getting to talk to you, and you're more than welcome to come back on the show anytime you want.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Just having me on again. I had a lot of great time, and I really appreciate being on.